speaking to Deanna Heer Council. Deanna is a criminal barrister practicing from 5 paper buildings in London. In 2022, she was appointed Senior Treasury Counsel, having specialised in the prosecution of homicide offences at the Old Bailey for more than a decade. She also specialises in health and safety cases. Deanna sits as a recorder of the Crown Court. A little bit more about Deanna. She was born in Rugby in England. She's mixed race. Her father is a Sikh who came to this country in the 1960s, where he met and married her English mother. She went to her local state school before studying law at Manchester Polytechnic, and she was one of the first generation in her family to go on to higher education. She was called to the bar in 1994. So welcome, Deanna. It's lovely to have you here today. We've got some questions here for you to answer, and thank you very much for participating in our podcast series.
Thank you for inviting me, Tarika.
I'll start off with the first question then, Deanna. What does Black History Month mean to you?
I suppose it's an opportunity, and an important opportunity, to celebrate and to draw attention to the achievements of Black people, and more widely, those of ethnic minority backgrounds. I think very few people, certainly of my generation, were taught about the contribution of people of colour to British history and the success of the British society over the years. When I was at school, I learned very little about Black history. And so I think Black History Month is an opportunity to put that right. Because everybody needs role models, everybody needs inspiration, and everybody benefits from having a path to follow. So I think it's important in that respect to provide a balance, I think, to what has gone before.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. I'll move on to the second question that we have for you, and it's about the theme for this year's Black History Month. And the theme is Time for Change. Action, not words. What does this look like for you as a person of colour?
I suppose it's about putting your money where your mouth is, and really investing. And I think that includes financial investment in Black and ethnic minority people, because there's absolutely no reason, if you think about it, why that investment shouldn't pay off in the long term. So it's about putting in place, I think, funding, training, and real opportunities for advancement, recognizing that people from Black and ethnic minority communities may not have had the same opportunities as their white colleagues to succeed. So, for example, it might be far easier to obtain a first-class degree in law if you went to a good school and were provided with a top quality education. Where people haven't had that grounding, it's much more difficult to achieve the same level of qualification. So I think it's about perhaps changing our perspective and recognizing not only what people have achieved, but the obstacles that they've had to overcome in order to reach a level of achievement, and providing a balance there, so that the achievements of people from less privileged backgrounds are given their proper weight.
Thank you so much. That's a really interesting observation there, and absolutely one that we should consider. Moving on to the third question. Some people think that the bar is not a welcoming place for people of colour. What are your thoughts, and how can we make the bar a more inclusive place?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the bar has traditionally been seen as a white, male, stale profession. And although there are many, many well-meaning people at the bar who want to see change, I think that more could be done to encourage people from non-traditional backgrounds to come to the bar. And I think that there are practical things that the bar could do to encourage people. I came to the bar in 1994, and I think I benefited from a window of opportunity where I had a grant to get me through university, and I had a career development loan, and there was funding available for somebody from my background to get started at the bar. That little window of opportunity appears to be shutting. So I think the bar has to recognise that it needs to fund people from less well-off backgrounds and give them that financial support to come to the bar. Just little things that the bar can do, like, for example, providing funded mini pupilages rather than expecting people to take a week off work and not get paid for that week, which some people may not be able to afford to do, so that they can come and do an unfunded mini pupillage for a week to put on their CV. So little things like that I think can help, but I think there needs to be more systemic funding, as well as the scholarships that are provided by the inns. I think we also need to show a greater willingness to bend towards people from Black and ethnic minority communities, and not simply expect them to fully assimilate into the ways of the bar, which can be seen as very old-fashioned and out of touch. So I think we've got a lot to learn from people from non-white backgrounds, effectively, and that can only enrich the level of experience that we have to offer people in the work that we do. So a welcoming approach, I think, to people from non-traditional backgrounds, providing training pathways such as the Treasury Counsel pathway that was introduced last year, and encouraging people to apply for roles that will advance their career, and making them understand that they have a good chance of getting those roles, I think. So, for example, I mean, I took Sil last year looking at the QC report, and the figures are that there were 253 applicants, only 39 of whom came from non-white backgrounds. But of those 39, 15 were appointed. And so of the 14% of the total who applied, 38% got it. And so I think that demonstrates that it's not a lack of ability, but people from Black and ethnic minority communities have just as much ability as their white counterparts. But it's encouraging people to think that they can apply, and to believe that they will be taken seriously and judged fairly. So I think, you know, there are green shoots, but there's a lot more the bar can do.
Thank you. I'll move on to our next two questions, which are a bit more about you. So firstly, tell us about your proudest achievement.
I think my proudest achievement was taking silk, actually, which I didn't expect to feel quite so proud of that achievement as I do, because I hadn't really thought about how it would make me feel. I just thought it was the next step along a career path. But actually, it's a recognition not just of the work that you've done in one particular case, but it's a recognition of a standard that you've achieved in a body of work for a number of years. So I guess that's what I'm proudest of, and I'm aware, actually, since taking silk, that I'm perceived differently, and I think with that comes a degree of responsibility to try and help others to achieve the same benchmark of success, really. So that's what I would say.
Thanks for sharing that with us. And then finally, what's the best piece of advice someone has given to you?
I was thinking about this and trying to think, racking my brains, and I don't think I've been given a single piece of advice that I'd pass on, but I would say that I benefited from an expectation that my parents had of me growing up. It was very unusual in the small town that I grew up in to see a mixed race marriage. I didn't know of anybody else who had mixed race parentage. But my parents never allowed me to think that that was in any way a disadvantage. Quite the opposite. They thought that it meant, and they taught us that it meant that we would see, we'd have the best of both worlds effectively. And my father, who's Indian, of Indian origin, he's a British Indian, he's a Sikh, had 2 daughters, but never, ever suggested to us or gave us any reason to believe that we needed to rein in our ambitions or limit what we thought we could achieve because we were girls, which at that time in that community wasn't necessarily the norm. So that expectation that we could succeed and that we were just as good as anybody else, I think, instilled a self-belief and a self-sufficiency in us that allowed us to progress in life. And so not a piece of advice really, but an expectation that was instilled in me. But what I would say is that I suppose what it's taught me is to back myself. And if I had to pass on a piece of advice to people embarking on a career in the law, particularly at the bar, where you are very much a sole practitioner, an individual, is you have to have the confidence to back yourself and persevere.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Deanna, for sharing your thoughts and insights and experiences. Really appreciate you participating.
No, my pleasure. Thank you, Tarika.